Hello, my beautifuls. Timing and patience. Do you feel like that you're always waiting for when is that right timing? It's like, I'll do it when. I'll do it when my kids get bigger. I'll do it when we get enough money. And whether it's something like freaking starting to do something for yourself. I remember when my kids were really small. So this is nuts. My middle son, Milo, is going to be 12. He was born on leap year. Do you know this? That there's only one leap year, February 29th. Join me with a T. Every 4 years. And hi, if you don't know me, I am Shelly Bond. I am the creator and the founder of Yoga Bliss with Shelly. And I launched a 21-day yoga challenge, and I wanted to get on here because I know that when Milo, my baby, middle baby, who's going to be 12, was 2. I had a 4-year-old and a newborn baby, and I was struggling hard with postpartum depression, and I had really bad anxiety, postpartum anxiety. I didn't even know what that was. So if you don't know any of these things, postpartum is after you give birth. With my daughter, who is now 14, I had a really traumatic C-section with her. And it was awful. And I actually, I died on the table. And it was very traumatic. And the first things I said to my daughter were, take her away from me. And I let that replay in my mind, and I held her and I nursed her, and I got stuck on pain prescription medication, and I got in a really big low. And then I got pregnant when she was 1 and a couple months, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this again. And I decided that I was going to take my power back and have a different birth. And I was determined to have a vaginal birth with her. And aligned like it always does. And my sister had a home birth. And I remember thinking, how is she having a home birth? Don't women die? Isn't that gross? How do you do that? And to my weird thoughts, at her birth, it was so peaceful. She had this beautiful blow up oval sized birthing pool. We had music, we had lavender towels, and it was her 2 of her toddlers were there, and we had a friend who was watching them while she was giving birth, and the midwife came with her helper, and it was just peaceful and calm. And yeah, it was birth, and birth has this very funky smell, and it's messy, but it was just it was this big exhale. And I decided, I think I was probably 4 months pregnant, that I was like, I'm having a home birth. And I don't care if I've had a C-section. And I remember at the time I was doing hair, I did hair professionally for 15 years. And I can't tell you how many women were like, aren't you afraid you're going to die? And the first time I heard that, I was like, am I afraid I'm going to die? And then my midwife reassured me, it's 0.001% of women get this thing called a uterine rupture, which means that your uterus would bleed out, and then you would die, or your baby would die. And the percentages was so small. It was 0.000 of a one of a fraction of not even 1%. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. But that home birth, it gave me so much hope, and it taught me that I could do something that I didn't think that I was capable of doing. And it was funny because my daughter and I were talking about fears. And I remember my biggest fear when it came to the birth of all of my babies was that I wasn't going to be able to know how to push them out. It was like, you're not going to be able to know how to push your babies out. You don't know how to do that. You've never done that. How are you going to do that? And when I was in labor and it came time to push my babies out, which I gave home birth to 2 of my children now, my body just did it. It was it was this, I couldn't help it whether I wanted to push my babies out or not. And it wasn't like in the movies how people count, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, push, or whatever. It wasn't anything like that. It was just like this primal, like, bearing down, and it just freaking happened. And it just happened, and it happened whether I thought or I knew I was ready, and I just freaking did it. And it's crazy because that birth almost resulted in me, I almost had to go to the hospital. And I was like, I was so defeated, but then I was like accepting, like, okay, if I have to go to the hospital to get my baby out, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And it doesn't matter. In my perception of if I need to be at home or have a C-section or whatever, it doesn't matter. And I actually completely accepted if I have to have a C-section to get my son out, and his name is Milo now, I will have a C-section because I don't care, because that's my baby, and I'll do whatever it takes. And it was crazy because I had this moment of pure acceptance and surrender. And guess what? Within hours, I had birthed my son at home. And it gives me goosebumps because I almost wasn't able to have that home birth because I was group B strep positive. It's this bacteria that you get in your vagina and you can give it to your baby. And long story short, and I don't know how I got in on my birth stories. I was not even going to tell my birth stories. It was not in the plan. It was not in my plan. And I gave birth to Milo, and it was beautiful, but I actually I had a uterine bleed really bad, and I bled really bad at my home birth. Luckily, I had a beautiful, amazing midwife, and she was able to administer Pitocin into my thigh, which Pitocin was actually created to help situations like gingers, me, who we bleed a lot. And then she gave me this black and blue cohosh or something under my tongue, and she told me to tell myself and command myself, Shelly, tell your uterus to shut down and clamp off. And I was like, uterus, clamp down and shut off. And then I did. And then I stopped shivering and convulsing, and I stopped bleeding. And then I was able to nurse my son, and I was able to be at home with my son. And my daughter at the time was 2. And it was so funny because I was so excited for her to meet her brother. And she actually had gone to a friend's house during my birth because she's just was a very needy child, and I felt like with her there I wasn't able to like fully give it my all. And so when she came to visit Milo, we ended up naming him. Milo was a 3-day-old baby, and he didn't have a name, and we almost named him Jack until the second day. He was wearing this little beanie hat that was like white and blue striped. And my husband really wanted to name him Jack. And the beanie fell off, and I looked at my husband, Rex, and said, he's not a Jack. And he was like, okay, well, if a third child and it's a boy, his name is Jack. Well, he called that out and manifested it because Jack's actually sick in his bedroom, which he sleeps in a tent. He's a nature boy, and he's 9 years old. And the whole reason I wanted to share this story with you was because timing is not always up to us. Like, I think of birth. Birth is such this beautiful metaphor because a lot of women nowadays, we're not really patient, and we're like, oh, let's just have an induction, or I'll just get blah, blah, blah. I'll get a C-section. I'll schedule it on this date. And if you really tap in, like, our bodies were meant to have babies, and our bodies, if you just let them, they will just have your baby when you're ready. And with my first daughter, it was almost 42 weeks. And then with Milo, my one who's almost 12, guess what? He was born at 38 weeks and like 3 days. I, in my mind, had decided I was going to be pregnant for 4 more weeks. And when I went into labor with him, I was in denial. And it was funny because I was actually just telling this story to my daughter yesterday when we went on a walk. And I was saying how that when I went to bed the night of the 28th, and I woke up at around midnight. And when I woke up, I was just like, oh, I was just so uncomfortable. And I was in denial that I was in labor because guess what? I didn't want to let anyone down. I didn't want to let down my sisters. And one of my sisters at the time was actually pregnant with my niece, who is just 4 months younger than Jack. I didn't want to wake her up. I didn't want to inconvenience my husband or anyone. And I remember my husband, he called the midwife and called my sister and was like, I think Shelly is in labor. And I was just like, no, I'm not. Doing all these weird things. So whether or not we think we're ready for things, that life does take a natural unfolding, but there are times where we have to take the driver's seat of our life. So from postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety and just feeling like that lackluster, like feeling like I'm married, I have 3 kids, and I'm very unhappy with myself. Like I have the house, like we had the house, I had the cars. Junie, will you go back in your room, please? My daughter likes to, I don't know who it is, one of my kids likes to sit out and like creep on me, which is fine. I accept that, but sometimes it's like, give your mama some space. I homeschool 2 kids. You might hear them in the background. But I had these expectations of what my life was going to be like, but it was there, but I still wasn't feeling like, what are those feelings? Like free. I wasn't feeling like, oh, I have arrived. I was feeling like, ugh, this is it. This is as good as it gets. Like I feel yucky. I'm not connected with my partner. I don't know what I want with my life. I was at time a hairstylist, and it was a hard time, and I went through really difficult times, and I knew deep down that I needed to do something, but I wasn't sure what it was. And this was so funny because my sister had this book sitting in her living room, and it was like The Miracle Morning, the not so obvious guide of how to transform your life before 8 o'clock. And again, I had my 9-year-old who's actually now peeing with the door open, and I can totally hear him. You probably can't because I have this really nice microphone that hopefully only records me and not a peeing 9-year-old in the back, and his doors opening and closing, but it's okay. I'm letting it go. And I remember looking at that book thinking like, and it was a self-help book. I was like, self-help books? I don't need that. I can totally help myself because I was stubborn, and I still have that trait. Gingers sometimes are really stubborn. My middle son, who's about to turn 12, is so stubborn, and he is a ginger. But I remember looking at that book, and I was like, And then my sister started listening to this podcast. It was like this personal growth podcast. It was the Model Health Show. I started listening to a little bit, and it was just like cool tips on like your health and like get more energy, feel better. And it was like talking about working out and all of these different things. And I remember I had a client at the time, and I did hair for 15 years, and I loved it at the time. It was like such a beautiful, creative time for me. And I remember, Jack, go in your room right now. 3, 2, and 1. Thank you. Boundaries with your kids. When you're doing a live and you ask them to stay in their room, please close your door. Thank you, sir. And sidetrack. This is the mommy mind. But, yoga. This client, I remember she was a yoga instructor, and I was like, that's kind of cool and weird. What is this yoga thing? And at first I thought it was just like, go in your room and close the door, Jack. You go, Bond. Now, 3, and 2, and 1. Do you feel like your kids like walk all over you when you're doing things like when you're on the phone, when you're on a live? Jack, if that door is not closed, you will lose privileges, pal. And it's annoying to me because my kids are old enough to know better and to stay in your freaking room when you're asked to stay in your room.
I've got a bloody nose.
Okay, I am not kidding you. I'm getting frustrated. Get the tissue and get in your bedroom now. Sorry. This is like the real life. All right, Jack. Okay. Jack is losing privileges tonight. No, tissues are in the bathroom, Jack. You're ruining my life right now. Go. I'm getting mad at you. Sometimes it's okay to be human and get mad. And this is exactly why I have to have a practice. So, because I went from those blues and all the things, and then you know how COVID hit, and then you're at home with your kids all the time. Well, now I homeschool 2 of my kids, which in moments I honestly am like, I don't know what I was thinking, because it's freaking hard, and I'm growing this business, my Yoga Bliss business, and I teach yoga once a week, and I manage everything in my house. And so the reason why that had to happen was because I have been experiencing a lot lately. I've been doing really well, but for about a year, anger was my guiding force, and I was freaking angry all the time. I'm not kidding. I was yelling at everyone all of the time. I was always mad. I was always fighting with my husband. I get in this way with my 12-year-old. He's almost 12, and so this kid is 5'11" and a half. He weighs 135 pounds. He's a football player. He's a wrestler. He's like a cool dude. We butt heads big time. And he is so much like me, and that's probably why. And he is so always fighting and mad at me. And so we get in these anger things. And so this practice of getting on my mat, and whether it's mat movement or it's meditation or it's breath or it's mindfulness or I'm journaling what I'm grateful for or I'm writing out my frustrations or I'm writing out my feelings, or I had a huge blowout with my husband, who my husband went to Japan for 13 days, and I was so happy that he went, but he's been back for a week now and he's been having a lot of jet lag, another sidetrack story, and he's been really cranky every morning. And we've been getting into these little like arguments. And so I had to adopt a practice where it's called forgiveness, and it sucks and it's hard. And it doesn't suck, but it's really hard and there can be a lot of resistance. So being a mom is hard work, and there's all of the feelings. And I think anxiety is something that we can experience every freaking day, F word day. And anger, for me, I don't know if you're like me and you get angry. I get angry a lot, especially I get these really high expectations of the way I think I want things to do. Like I want to delve in and do so much for my Yoga Bliss, but I also dedicated myself to teach homeschool to my kids. I say luckily, but not luckily. My son is sick, so my daughter is here doing her homeschool in her space. So that means 4 days a week, 4 hours a day, I am being a homeschool mom. I'm being a homeschool mom, and then I'm being a business builder, and I'm being a business creator, and I'm a writer. I've written a book called Awaken You, and I have 2 other books in the making, but they've been like put on hold, and I can get angry, like, but I signed up for this. Like I chose to homeschool my kids who have learning challenges. I chose because I felt like this was what they needed in their lives. And so with this practice, so where I'm at with this blobbly sidetracking thing of, if you're getting in arguments with your spouse, if you're arguing with your kids a lot, if you're feeling that like so much frustration, so much overwhelm, if your house is a mess, like I get really a lot of anxiety, I realize, which creates anger when my house is really messy. And if you know, I have 3 kids and I have 3 dogs. So if you have any kids, you'll know they're like massive mastermind destructors. I have my favorite tea here. It's the Yogi Positive Energy. I'm feeling this, like, it's funny. When I speak a lot of my truth, it like kind of burns on my throat chakra, which is good because we have to speak the hard things and say things that are scary. And if you're ever afraid to do something, you need to do it and go ahead and do it. And so the reason why I'm sharing all this is that I made a practice about 9.5, almost 10 years ago. So Jack's birthday is in April. So probably when he was really small, because I was like out of desperation. And it was out of like, I don't know what else to do, but I have to do something. And I started I did the 21-day fix. And I think the instructor, her name was like Autumn. And it was just like this fitness challenge. And I remember my sisters were like eating this certain way. And it was so weird. It was like kind of Weight Watchers vibe, where it was like you eat out of these special containers and you only can have this much of this size and this much of this size. And I didn't like that. I don't like diet restrictions as much. I like eating healthy and listening to my body and eating foods that feel good, not eating foods that don't feel good. Eating real foods is what I'm doing. My son is driving me nuts. Hey, Jack, did you come back out, buddy? You need to go into your room, bud. And then you can be a nicer mom when your son is being a fart nugget. But where I was getting at is that, honestly, that 21 days, like I didn't do the diet thing, but I actually started being gluten-free, which was really hard. My husband was like, we're not gluten-free. We're not dairy-free. He's from Wisconsin. He loves cheese. He's like, I will eat cheese until the day I die. Like his intestines is probably filled with like 7 pounds of cheese, which is fine. I love cheese. Cheese is delicious. And I eat cheese now. But back in those days, I got really kind of sticklery about food. And it's where my journey with health and wellness. And so it started there, but guess where it actually like really started? In here. And I started journaling and I started doing meditations. And I remember at the time I did this kind of ridiculous meditation. I think it was like Headspace or something, which it was a good start. But to me, it was so weird because you were staring at a screen and there was like these cartoon characters, and it was trying to teach you how to be present. And so that led into guided meditations. And then I did guided meditations, and still my practice evolves and I'll do guided meditations. I went almost 2 years for doing self-guided meditations all, and I could just guide myself. My mind over the past year has been like, I really wanted to expand, my journey to enlightenment. But that was another thing, as I got up on this kick where I was like, must be enlightened. And so I was like seeking everything and meditating like 2 hours a day. I'm not kidding. I was meditating 2 hours a day. Like, I want to be enlightened. I better be enlightened. And it became this kind of really unhealthy thing. And now I have a really nice alignment or a nice balance because I meditate to find that inner stillness and that inner calm. And I started working out. I started practicing yoga. I started going for walks. And I started doing it just like a thing I do. And now here I am, 9.5, almost 10 years later. And I'm so excited because I've created a 21-day yoga challenge that's geared for mamas who are feeling overworked, overwhelmed, most of us, feeling that like, I'm missing something. I don't know what it is. This is it. This challenge is like that kickstart, that 21 days, because so it is said that a habit can take 21 days. That's kind of like the kickstart. That's just like get your toes in the water and get you warmed up, but it can take upwards to 30 to 45 to 75 days. I'm actually currently at day 52 of a 75-day challenge because for me, it really takes those big chunks. But if you're brand new or if you're just like, you're needing something and you're a mom and you're like, I want to pull my hair out of your head, I have it for you. And it's completely free on Yoga Bliss with Shelly on my YouTube channel. Head over there right now. What are we on? Day 5. So tomorrow will be day 6. And it's this beautiful challenge that is a squat and a plank challenge because I was like, girl, we've got to move our bodies. And so there'll be 4 days of work. And the beginnings of the practices are gentle, really nice yoga stretches. And then the meat of it is kind of like some strength training, but without weights. We're just it's all body weight and it's all doable and it's hard. We're doing hard stuff. We're doing some like lighter stuff, some functional movements, and then ends with gentle yoga. And every 5th day, we're doing a lovely gentle yoga practice that incorporates just like really feel good movements to tap in that are also going to help you kind of find that inner healing here, because we think we want the flat tummy. We think we want the banging body, or I think it always starts outside. And maybe sometimes it does hit like me where it's at that point of desperation where it's like, what am I going to do? You just have to hit that breaking point where you're like, I'm sick and tired of feeling like this. I'm sick and tired of feeling like a wreck. I'm sick and tired of fighting with everyone. And so I will tell you that these moments where I'm at home and I'm like maybe going live and still getting angry, because the anger still happens, like, Shelly, it's okay to be where you are. And my love, it's okay for you to be where you are. But what happens is that your movement practice, your mindful practice, it guides you and it follows with you. And when you show up on your mat and you do things that help you find calm, and when you help you find strength and that help you find focus, then when you get off of your mat, it's like when you look over, if you're a stay-at-home mom, like I've been a stay-at-home mom and a business creator for the past 6 years, so my job is to keep the house clean. My husband is an electrical contractor, so he's out there. And so when I look around and I'm feeling really overwhelmed by the house, then it's like, I've got this. I just did some planks and some squats. Like, I'm strong and I'm rooted. And even sometimes, you still get a little annoyed, but you're just like, you are like centered, and it's not like as like the end of the world. And yes, still there are those moments of parenting where I'm like, God, and I have arguments with my kids. But the coolest thing that I've noticed about the way that I parent versus how I was parented is that I am open to self-reflection, and I'm always open to forgiveness and to admitting when I am wrong, which is hard. Is it hard to admit when you're wrong? Sometimes we do want to be right. This morning, I found myself telling my daughter that I wanted to be right. And she was like, why do you want to be right? And then I was like, ooh, check yourself at the door, Shelly. Like, because I have those moments, but then I can say, you know what? I'm really sorry. I did notice that. Like, that was ridiculous. Or when Milo and I are butting head to heads, it's my one who's almost 12, and my son, hey, Jack, I'm getting frustrated. You need to listen and go into your room. Jack is a archer, and he's shooting his arrows out here. So there's a lot of things I said, but really what I want you to take away from this is that you can change whatever it is that you want to change, or that maybe you don't know that you want to change it, but there's something that you need in your life with a daily practice. And I promise you that when you start making yourself a priority every morning, every day, it changes your life. But it starts within here first. And maybe we think it's like, I want to lose the belly fat. I want to get my butt fit and strong. I want to look good for summer, bikini season, or I don't know, whatever it is. Or if you're just like, gosh, I would just love to feel calm. That's what yoga does. It helps you feel calm. It helps you feel strong. It helps you feel grounded. And don't just hear me blah, 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 blabbling. Experience one of my classes. This challenge is like really my heart and my core. And I feel like I've been really like manifesting and creating this class inside of me for years. And I've created different practices. And if you get in the challenge and you're like, oh, it's a little much, Shelly, I also have 11 practices for beginners, and they're only 10 minutes because this 21-day challenge is a little bit more power into your punch. They're about 20 to 30-minute classes because I really feel like you need to make that time for you. And I know it's easy to make the excuses of why we don't have time. I get it. I've been there. But you can either make the excuses of why you don't have time, or you can just continue to feel like dumpity crappity ball sackles like you've been feeling. That wasn't a very politically correct thing to say, but you know what I mean? Like, we just have to get to this breaking point. We're like, no more. I am not feeling like this. I am taking control of myself. And my daughter and I are on this mission to be this like calm, confident, and in control self. And so this whole 21-day yoga challenge is a squat and a plank challenge for mamas to help you feel that more calm, confidence, and in control. Because calm is that ability to be focused and to not be so affected by your surroundings. Confidence is something that comes from within here. And you know what's crazy is that my daughter has this book called The Confidence Code for Teen Girls. And it's a really good book. And I actually never read there's like a confidence code for women. And she had this friend, she became friends with this girl, and this girl was really struggling with friends and boys and all sorts of things. And my daughter is just like a kindred kind soul. She brings the book to school, and the girls around her shame her like, oh, you need help with confidence? That's weird. And it was like such this insecurity. And it was like, yes, everyone needs help with confidence, including you, little girl, who just said that. Because you just shamed her. And then guess what? My daughter found that book on one of the benches just sitting in the hallway because that girl got so guilted and so shamed that she wouldn't even get the confidence code for girls. And I will tell you that my daughter-in-law, who is on the spectrum, is one of the most confident 14-year-olds and heart-centered 14-year-olds I've ever met because she's really big into personal development. And so confidence comes when you start showing up for yourself and you start proving to yourself that no matter how I'm thinking and how I'm feeling, I'm going to get my butt on my mat and I'm going to do me no matter what. So no matter if your son's shooting the bow and arrow, or this morning I get into an argument about my husband about his AirPods, or I get into another argument about my son because I said something he didn't like and he got mad at me, and it was like, I'm doing this no matter what. I'm getting on my mat. I'm practicing me. And I don't care what else is happening around. I'm doing it. And there can be a lot of resistance from family, but you can do it. And I was going to keep this short, my lovely, but I am on here because I have this like heart and this soul calling to help women create a home practice that is a life-lasting thing, that is it's a journey. It's not an endpoint. That with a home practice, you can do it anytime, anywhere, and there's no more excuses. That you can grab your phone out of your pocket and you can do your practice. I do it almost all the time because sometimes I like to project a class on the screen, and I'm a dork. I take my own classes because I want to ensure that they're giving me everything that I need because I know that that's what you need. And if you stop making the excuses and start making up the reasons why you can't miss this, that you will start transforming yourself in here and in here. And that no matter what's happening out here, that you will stay steadfast and you won't let your emotions control you all the time, which they do because we're women and we're very emotionally charged. I get this. I am definitely a huge empath. And if you haven't listened, I actually have a beautiful live I did on here all about the being like an empath alchemist. It's like another one of my heart callings. You have got this, sister. You have to start making time for you, and especially now more than ever now. And that it's so cool because being at home, I know we can make up more excuses. Like I teach a local gentle yoga class once a week to give back to my community because it's just a way I can connect and also see what women are needing in their lives. And one of the women said, I can't do yoga at home. I need my people. I need to be around people. I need the accountability. I need the energy. I need this. And I said, that's so interesting because I'm the opposite. Like I get more like, I've considered myself an introvert for many years. And even just teaching yoga has just allowed me to come out of my box and I can now teach, I can hold space for lots of people and it's okay. And through my practice, I built that confidence. And then that third part of being calm, confident, and in control. So in control is not that you're like this raging control freak, which is how I can have this tendency to want to be as a big control freak. But being in control is that you choose to control what it is that you can in this moment. And so a lot of us, like me as a mom, sometimes it's like you want to over hyper control your kids. You want to over hyper control your husband. You want to over hyper control your house. And so I say, take the reins on what you can. So what can you control in this moment is you. You can control if you're moving your body. You can control if you choose to take a shower. You can control if you're going to brush your teeth. You can control how much water that you put in your body. Can you control what's happening with the government? No. Can you control the way that your husband comes home and acts to you? No. Can you control the way that your tweeny son who's turning 12 but thinks he's 15 and is being a little bing bong butthole? Can you control that? No. But you can control your reactions. You can control your responses. And that comes with your practice. And whether yoga is your jam, or strength is your jam, or going for walks is your jam, or heavy weightlifting is your jam, or HIIT training, high intensity, low intensity. There's like a million ways to work out. Qigong, I love Qigong. And the more I evolve in my practice, like it changes. Like I practice yoga. Oh girl, I am not kidding you, for like religiously 4 years, and I didn't make room for anything else because this is kind of how I am. I was like, it's only yoga. But I kept feeling like I was missing something. And I found this beautiful woman, and her whole vibe is live in legs, and she does yoga and strength training. And I was like, oh, you can do that? And so I've been incorporating with my yoga, strength training, strengthening postures, weights even. Like I've been using 15-pound weights, which are really heavy, but I will tell you that the benefits of weightlifting, it makes you feel so strong and so powerful. It's really good for your bone density and your bone health. It's so good for your mind because it teaches you, if I can lift this heavy thing and put it down, then when there's heavy energetic things and situations in my life, it's like, I know how to do that. So it's like you show up and you do hard things, and whether it's with weights or strength training, or if you've taken an Ashtanga practice or Vinyasa Hatha, whatever it is, like I'm here reinventing the way that I do yoga and the way that I do movement and the way that I do mindfulness. And I'm not like what I thought I was going to be. I thought I was going to be this like enlightened guru yogi, and I wanted to be this very, no, I wanted to be that way. Like I wanted to be sitting on a rock and meditating and levitating. I don't want to be that because that's not me. And I remember I had this like girlfriend who was so real. And I was like, yeah, I guess I'm not enlightened. And she's like, no, Shell, you're not enlightened. And I'd be lying to you if I was telling you that you were. And it's okay. Like, you don't have to get in your head about your yoga. And so the creation of yoga that I do compared to anyone like Yoga with Adriene or Sarah Beth Yoga, who are amazing yogis, and I love the way that they do yoga, or bird yoga, or even this beautiful woman who it's like, I think it's called Living in Leggings, and I don't even know her name, but she's awesome. And I've connected with so many other yogis, but I do it so different. And I am so called to connecting with women, and I'm so called to just like deepening our ability to love ourselves and to bring self-care into the practice. And I'm also dedicated to bringing strength and gentle yoga and making this like unka puka puka. And I'm not as much into like flows. Like I can sometimes, but sometimes if I take a class and they're like, flow, that's not me. It's just, I teach way different, and it's okay. And I love it. And it's so great to be on this space where being different is actually, it's applauded, because we're not all the same and we're not supposed to be the same. And it's okay to be exactly where you are. And my message for you today is that, what was I starting this with? With patience and timing. And you have to stop waiting to pull the trigger. You have to stop saying you're going to wait for when. Because when, bam, my freaking second home birth baby is going to be 12. That was 12 years ago. I have been married for 20 years. Bam, 1 year will go and you will blink and you will be like, what the frick just happened? You have to start today. And imagine if you started a daily practice for you today, even if it was taking 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever minutes that you choose to take every day, and you did every day for a year. Imagine the growth that you would experience, not only in your body, which is where we first target, but in your mind, in your emotional state, and your balance, because motion creates emotion. And when you move your body, it makes this significant shift. And you can go from being an angry, farty butt nugget, which is usually the way my husband starts out his mornings. He gets really angry in the morning, and then he hops on his bike or does his weights, and then he's like a whole different man. And this morning, I was not my best self, and he was being a butthole, and I said something back, and I was like, Shelly, you just need to like let him move his body to move that energy, because he's a business owner and he lets a lot of stress tense and tied up, because sometimes he'll get on his phone right away and he's answering emails and calls, and it's like, okay, he's already like in that stress response, in that cortisol, which is that stress hormone that flushes through and floods our body. And so all he needs to do though is get on the bike, lift his weights, and even if he's doing it for 30 or 45 minutes, he comes out off of his bike and he's like, oh, he's a pleasure. He's back to his normal self. So if you notice that in you, my husband, not into what I do, and that's okay. I have created these beautiful practices to help you get yourself back, to help you take back your power, my love. So join me in the 21-day yoga challenge. And I hope that you can really awaken a part of you that has been longing to be loved by none other than you. And that when you do things that are strong, that create focus and concentration, that you can't even help but get that calm, confidence, and that in control feeling. And I promise you that it's a practice and you can't give up on yourself. And even if you miss a day, I encourage you to just pick up where you left off, or you can start fresh this challenge. I'm doing a 75 hard challenge right now. And he says, if you miss one day, go back to day one and start again. So I kind of like that mindset, because kind of picking back up can make you feel like, oh, but if you just start back and you're like, I'm going to start back and I'm going to get myself on track. Because when you do miss a day, it tells you, oh, it's okay to not care about myself today. And we all have those days. But I will tell you, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. You've got this. I freaking love you. And I'm sending you a big virtual hug. And I hope you gain some value and some insight. And please like and subscribe to Yoga Bliss with Shelly here. I am just getting back on here and starting up lives again. I haven't done them in a while. I had a Yoga Bliss with Shelly podcast for a while, and I don't know, is this like the new vibe? It seems like it is, just doing these like kind of like live impromptu podcasts. So let us go live and let us get calm, confident, and in control with the 21-day Strong and Calm Mama Yoga Challenge. Check out the thumbnail. It's really fun. It's beautiful. It just makes me feel good, so I know it'll make you feel good. It's really feminine and just feeling good. So I love you. I hope you have a beautiful day, and really, my love, just make time for you, because you matter. No more excuses. The time for you is now, and you have to just do it by making the time for you. I love you. Have a lovely, beautiful, lovely day.